Okay, everyone, please take your seats. Let's get started here tonight. Let the mayor switch her glasses. This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting was included in a list of meeting dates sent to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on January 3rd, 2019, and was posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, 221 South 5th Avenue on January 3rd, 2019, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to my left and to my right. If you come up to speak, please speak into the microphones, and assistive listening devices are available. Rick Abrams, are you here?
Yes, Mayor, right here.
Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Brill-Mittler?
Here.
Councilman Fine?
Here.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin?
Here.
Councilman George?
Here.
Councilman Hale? Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Here.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Here.
Borough Attorney?
Here.
Borough Administrator?
Here.
I am hereby proclaiming the month of April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Denim Day. I am also proclaiming the month of April as the 51st anniversary of the National Fair Housing Month. And now I have some proclamations for some of the heroes that are in this room today. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, Highland Park experienced one of the worst fires it has ever had. And tonight, we want to honor the first responders
For Forest Glen, we're doing.
for Forest Glen Apartments, the first responders who showed up and helped all of the residents that were there. And I'm sorry, this is the second fire that occurred in Highland Park. If any of these officers or volunteers are here, please step forward. Lieutenant Gary Panicella, Sergeant John Sachow, Detective Sean McGraw, Officer Christopher DaCosta, Dispatcher Caitlin Cox, Lieutenant Richard Abrams, Officer Brian O'Mara, Officer Gaetano Palumbo, Officer Joseph O'Lara Jr., Sergeant Jason Culver, Officer David Soden, Officer Kevin Schiffner, Officer Caitlin Dean, Officer Lance LeBrew of Piscataway, Trooper Clarence Turner of the NJSP, Officer Michelle Bolognini from Rutgers, Chief Jay Lippman, Assistant Engineer Andy Schwartz, FF Eric Torres Olivos, FF Matt Flower, FF Levy Shapiro,
Firefighter.
First Assistant Chief Tony Zimmeretta, Firefighter Peggy Brooks, Firefighter Mike McMahon, Firefighter Mario Diaz Sr., Firefighter Lester Rosenhaus, Second Assistant Chief Michael Gershon. It's easier to say FF. FF Wesley Butler Jr., FF Miguel Rondon, F.F. Tyler Morris. From our first aid squad, Sarah Lowenstein, Eli Goodman, Gabby Polofsky, Robin Lowenstein, Josh Lowenstein, Justin Ching, Nasi Tuskioglu, OEM Coordinator H. James Polos, former mayor, Bruce Nadler, Rodolfo Giuliani, Nancy Wolf, Brian Tuches, Alyssa Kaplan, the Milltown Rescue Squad, East Brunswick Fire Department, North Brunswick Fire Department, River Road Rescue Squad, Edison Fire Department, East Franklin Fire Department, and New Brunswick Fire Department. David Lowenstein. I'm sorry, there's so many names that just got mixed in. David has been working with the First Aid Squad now for how many years? 35 years. Okay, the proclamation. Whereas on March 26, 2019 at 5:22 p.m., Highland Park received a report of an apartment on fire on Forest Glen Drive. And whereas members of the Highland Park Police Department, the Highland Park Fire Department, the Highland Park First Aid Squad, the Highland Park Office of Emergency Management, and members of the Civilian Emergency Response Team, along with mutual aid agencies from the surrounding area, responded to Forest Glen Drive. And whereas, upon arrival in the area, it was discovered that 108 Forest Glen Drive was fully involved in a structure fire. And whereas members of all departments working together were able to safely evacuate residents of the affected building area. Whereas, due to the quick professional actions of all involved, the fire was contained to 4 apartments. And whereas, the fire was extinguished without any injuries or loss of life. Now, therefore, I, Gail Brill-Mittler, the Mayor of the Borough of Highland Park, do hereby issue the special commendation on all of the people in front of you today. Thank you all. You are true heroes, each and every one of you. Thank you for your service in the past and the service I know we can count on here in Highland Park for the future. You can sit down. Thank you. Okay. I'm about to administer the oath of office and allegiance to our newly promoted police officers. The 2 members of our police department who are being promoted tonight went through a grueling process for promotion. It included oral tests, essays, and I have to tell you, some of them submitted essays 60 pages long, 85 pages long, because they are so committed to their jobs and to Highland Park. After the essays, they spent several hours in interviews with the Public Safety Committee, chaired by our Councilwoman Elsie Foster Dublin, and myself. And tonight, I am very, very proud to announce that we will be, once I have a vote from the council, administering the oath of office to Lieutenant Richard Abrams, who will become our acting chief, and Sergeant Joe Corbello, who will become our acting captain. So, council members, may I have a motion to adopt these two, the resolution for the promotion of these two?
Motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin?
Yes,
Councilman
very excited
George?
about them.
Absolutely.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Officer Sergeant Corbello, since you arrived, you've been a superstar. Thank you. The kids love you too. Congratulations. Lieutenant Abrams, we worked together many, many years ago on gun safety, and that was a great experience for me, and I look forward to working with you closely again. Thank you both. Congratulations, and yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask Councilwoman Foster Dublin to join me in swearing in our soon-to-be acting captain, Richard Abrams.
Would you like to have your family join you as well? Please do.
For the camera.
Would you like to hold the Bible for your dad?
Sorry, this is going to be on TV.
Raise your right hand.
Got to take pictures. Yeah, sure.
I, Richard Abrams,
I, Richard Abrams,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office of acting police chief according to the best of my ability. I do further solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Part of the cell phone, this day and age, everything's written down on your cell phones. So I have a couple of quick words I'd like to go through. I haven't seen this room this packed in a very, very long time. I look around the room and I'm awed by the turnout, the amount of support that both Captain Corbello and I have received throughout this whole process, from the mayor, the council, neighboring police agencies, has been astounding. and we are both very grateful for that. I'm honored to be named Chief of the Highland Park Police Department. It's a position that every officer dreams of starting one day, and it's a sobering thought to realize today is my one day. Today is where it starts. I'd like to say a few quick thank yous. First, to my parents and my brother who are here today, for teaching me to be a good person, for showing me right from wrong, and making sure that I always do the right thing for the right reasons, even when nobody's looking. They have instilled in me a sense of duty and a desire to help others. I cannot thank my wife and my son enough. Without their love and support these last few months, I never would have made it this far. Throughout my career, the two of you have made sure that it was easy to focus on the tasks ahead with a clear mind and a full heart, all while supporting me at home. You're the best things in the world, and I thank the heavens every day for both of you. I would not be here tonight, before you today, if not for the trust placed in me by my fellow officers. No matter the rank or position I held, the men and women I work with counted on me to guide them and to lead them to success. Every officer I work with teaches me something new every single day. It makes me a better leader, and for that I can't thank any of you enough. Finally, I would like to thank the mayor and the council for believing in me and for recognizing my desire to lead. I'm encouraged that they place their faith in me. And I will bring Highland Park on its path forward to becoming a shining example of what small town, community-based policing looks like. Being selected to hold this position is a culmination of almost 16 years as a Highland Park police officer. I know that there are challenges to come, and I plan on facing each of them, eyes up, head forward. I also know that I can't do that alone. Fortunately, I am blessed with an excellent command staff, a progressive and supportive town government, and top-notch officers and detectives that are well-trained and eager to help. I'm also fortunate to have a borough full of intelligent and civic-minded residents. I cannot do this job without the support of the people of the Borough of Highland Park. I need their trust and support in the months that come ahead. And we will bring together my vision for the Highland Park Police Department. As we progress in this new direction, there will be a prominent focus on community policing. You will all notice an increase in communication between the department and the people, and I invite you all to participate in this progress. With the full support of everyone, as well as the mayor, the town council, the amazing men and women of the police department, I know we will succeed in continuing to build Highland Park's reputation as a welcoming community, while we provide the safety and quality of life that all of its residents deserve with compassion, justice, and equity. Thank you.
Of acting captain. Okay, all the Carmellos. Who would you like to hold the Bible?
Harry?
Can you all help and hold the Bible? Raise your right hand. Okay. I, Jose Carvello, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office of acting police captain according to the best of my ability. I do further solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Okay, I have the honor and privilege. Congratulations. Happy years. Good luck. I was. I tried to pay before and it didn't work. Okay. At least for now.
I'll sit. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I'm glad everybody liked Chief Abrams' speech. I wrote it. So I'd just like to thank everybody getting out. My second joke is that everybody's here for the cake anyway, so they already want to get out of here. But I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, especially my family, my wife and kids who have stood by me this entire process and throughout my 16-year career. I'd like to thank the mayor and council for also having faith in both Chief Abrams and I. I'd also like to thank every single officer that I've ever worked with that I've had the pleasure of working with over 16 years. I'm not here without any of you. And you all have imparted something, and I thank you. I can't wait to get started. This has been a long process that Chief Abrams and I have gone through, and we just really can't wait. Chief Abrams said everything that we want to do here. So I appreciate it. Can't wait to see you guys stop in to the police department and say hi. Thank you.
So I have two more things for you about our very exciting new police department. I'm so looking forward to our new chief and captain and the rest of the team taking our police department into the 21st century with community involvement, computer usage, data analysis, and hands-on neighborly contact with the residents of Highland Park. I'm thrilled about this. They are new to the positions, and I just want to introduce you to someone who's going to be working as an advisor if she's needed for any advice. We have with us today Chief Spruill, who comes to us from her former gig as chief. Chief Spruill is recently retired as she was the chief of the Essex County Detectives. And we're thrilled to have her nearby. She lives in Piscataway, which makes it even better. And she's got vast experience in managing and administering a department. And she will be there to, as these two say to me, they don't know what they don't know. And they do say that. She's going to tell them what they don't know. So thank you very much, Chief Spruill. And you too, I am so excited. I can't even begin to tell you. We have a new day of policing dawning here in Highland Park. Thank you. So the last thing I want to mention for anyone who is willing and anxious and eager to meet our new chief and captain, they wanted to get into the community as quickly as possible. So tomorrow night, we are having an open public meeting for anyone to come and talk to them, hear what their vision is, and ask any questions of them. And so that community meeting is at 7 p.m. in our community center, the building right next door. So again, we ask that you come and join us then. Thank you all for coming, and we have some special treats.
Two more.
Oh, yes, two more. And as I said, it is a growing and exciting department. Okay. As we go out to hire new recruits to our department, it's very important to us to find people that are going to fit in with the culture of Highland Park and our department. And so I am thrilled tonight to be installing as officers Adalberto Pacheco and Caitlin Dean. So if they could step forward, and Councilwoman Foster Dublin, if you could join us. Chief, would you like to join us as well, and Captain? Good to meet you in person. Good to see you.
Is your family member with you?
Yes.
Or
No,
you would
with
like
my
to have
kids.
them join you? Yes, come on.
You're the start.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I, Adalberto Pacheco,
I, Alberto Pacheco,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform
perform
all the duties
all the duties
of the office of Highland Park Police Officer
of the office of Highland Park Police Officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments
and to the governments
established in the United States
established in the United States
and in the State of New Jersey,
and in the State of New Jersey,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Is your family? Yes. Please stand.
Okay.
Want to come up?
Now, who would like to hold the Bible? Okay. All right, you ready?
As ready as I'm going to be, right?
There you go. Okay. I, Caitlin Dean,
I, Caitlin Dean,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will faithfully,
I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
justly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
of the office of Highland Park Police Officer
of the office of Highland Park Police Officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and that I will bear true faith
and
and
allegiance
allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people. So help me God.
Congratulations. Okay, I'd like to invite everybody for some cake and desserts to celebrate all of this. Please join us. Just stay here. Can we get started without Susie?
We have,
And Terry's not. Okay. All right, we're going to start with council reports, and as the remaining council person and the administrator come in, we'll catch up with them. Councilman Fine, I know you have a deadline, so would you like, do you have a report?
I do not this evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Foster Dublin, do you have a report?
I think my report took up most of the night, but I just want to say I'm excited about our new acting chief and captain, and I'm also excited about Chief School, that she'll be here to do the mentorship. And I think that we're on the path to being in great hands as we move forward into the 21st century with policing here in Highland Park. And I especially love the fact that tomorrow evening is the community forum with our new chief and acting captain, and they'll be able to lay out the plans of the future and how they plan to communicate much more effectively, community policing, and whatever questions the community may have, that they'll provide answers to that. So I'm really excited about that. With that said, that's my report. I have nothing else to add at this time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes, I do have a report. Let me get my glasses. That's what happened when millennials get old. Glasses. So don't listen to them. So I cut down my report because Council President George, since it's a longer meeting tonight, but I do want to mention every free program that we're offering at our community center and the programs that I just couldn't cut out my report, sorry. So over at Senior Services, we have our free eye screening available to the community on Thursday, May 30th, starting at 9:30 a.m. in the community center. You must call or stop by the office to register, and limited spaces are available. And this is open to the public ages 3 and up. Also, we have another great program that I actually signed up for as well. It's our AARP Driver Safety Program. It's open to the public. This is a 2-part course that will take place Wednesday, May 29th and Wednesday, June 5th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And you must attend both sessions to receive a certificate of completion that you send over to your insurance program, to your insurance company, and you will receive a discount on your insurance. So this is a really good deal. If you are an AARP member, it's $15 and $20 for a non-member. I think you receive 2 points off your driving license and also 5% discount. So the spots were filling up when I spoke to our senior services coordinator. So please stop by or email her ASAP. And in recreation, our summer camps, day camps, sport camps, teen camps register for 1 week or all 6, and camp begins July 8th. Early care starting this year is 7 a.m. And April 30th is our deadline to apply for the HP Gives a Hoop Scholarship Program. These scholarships help our children in need by attending the summer camp for free. And the information is on our Borough website and on the Facebook page. If you have any questions about this program, I actually learned about it last year when we had a resident that missed the deadline and we still got her in. So just reach out to me, like directly. I will come to your house and help you with the application and so forth. If you have any issues or questions about it, we'll get them in. We also have a free art class starting May 3rd on Fridays, 2:45 to 4:15. 6 sessions at the community center. This program is limited to 10 participants only. It's first come, first serve, 3rd to 5th grade. And I also wanted to mention something. The mayor gave the proclamation for the first responders that responded to the fire last month over at Forest Glen. I actually live in Forest Glen, so when the mayor texted me, about the fire, I live in Forest Glen Treetops. The first thing that popped in my head, I didn't know the address, but I have a pet at home who was home alone, and he's crated. So I did some research, and actually the ASPCA gives a free pet safety pack, and it comes with decals that you can put around your apartment or so. The entire Oxford Arms, Cedar Lane, Forest Green, Treetops is all pet friendly. And if anyone that lives over there, you know that every other apartment there has pets. So I really encourage you to sign up on the website for that. They also give you a magnet for information on animal poison control center. And last but not least, I do want to wish our community that's celebrating a happy Passover and happy Easter. And that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman.
And Eid.
And Eid. I'm sorry. Everything. I'm sorry.
Okay, Councilwoman Welkowitz, do you have a report?
Yes, thank you. I'll keep it brief. The counties, well, first off, I will forgo the glasses because I wrote extra big. The county's nonprofit transportation agency, Keep Middlesex Moving, started a new radio program on WCTC 1450 AM radio. The name of the program is Mobility Matters. It airs Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. And I will be a guest on Wednesday, May 1st. So please tune in, and we welcome call-ins as well. And we'll be discussing mobility issues in Highland Park and around Highland Park, connecting ourselves to the neighboring municipalities. We have a special grand opening beginning earlier this year than in any previous year. Our special opening day for our farmers market is Friday, May 3rd. That's nearly an extra month that we're adding. Actually, it is an extra month that we're adding to the farmers market. It opens at 11 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. and it's open from May through mid-December. And in fact, last year we even sold Christmas trees. We continue to add new vendors and new events, and you can find more information on the Main Street Facebook page and hashtag HP Farmers Market. I can't wait for the farmers market to open. Sunday, May 5, is our 11th annual 5K and street fair. Walk, run, or roll in our Run in the Park 5K race through downtown and our beautiful neighborhoods. The race begins at 9 a.m. Please pre-register at runinthepark.org and pick up your t-shirt and swag bag before the event. Race proceeds benefit the Borough of Highland Park Police Department, Fire Department, First Aid Squad, Recreation Departments, our public library, and our Main Street. While it is a serious competitive race and a certified course, there's also lots of family fun and some kid races starting that morning as well. Soon after, from 11 to 4:30 p.m. is our very popular street fair. Please come out for that. And for more information, you can visit the Main Street Facebook page or hashtag HP5K and hashtag Spring Fling. And also to our residents, Aziz and Pesach, a happy Easter and Eid. And as a student of architecture and someone who loves to travel, my condolences to the city of Paris upon losing an architectural icon. Le monde pleure avec toi. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I sorry, I forgot one more thing. I participated at the Are You Running Center for Youth over at the Rutgers campus, and I promised them that I would mention that I did participate because they promised me that they were going to watch a council meeting. It was many students there actually from Highland Park. So thank you for having me, and here's your local government in action.
Okay, Council President George, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try and keep it brief tonight because of all these ceremonies and celebrations. And DPW, we've been keeping you advised of the status of our new one-armed trash removal process with the new truck. The toters have now been ordered. They should be in shortly, and the DPW will be assembling and distributing them with a rollout for the new route in early June. The routes have been outlined. I was discussing them down at DPW today. We'll be taking a trial run on them, hopefully by the end of May, before Memorial Day. We also found that the capacity on the routes of what we're already doing may actually allow us to expand the existing routes as well. With regard to potholes, our favorite Highland Park mascot, the contract with the consultant who we have retained to install software and instruct us on using it on how to rate and manage our roads as opposed to just picking a project every year and running that way. They will be shortly installing the software into our computers to use and instructing us in its use, but it also turns out that some of their members also teach a course in the actual evaluation process. Like, the software will tell you how to rate it, but you need to get the information off the street and into the computer. So that course is going to be available. We'll be sending our people to that. Combining DPW with STAC, I just note that they've been working together extremely well over the past year, 18 months, to coordinate and cooperate with each other. DPW tells me that they'll be working on the planting the 37 street trees for this year's project in May. The Environmental Commission has reviewed the EV ordinance, which I'm sponsoring for electric vehicles to make town more friendly for them. In addition, the Millbrook cleanup, which you'll be hearing a lot more of, and the Environmental Commission was also consulting on that, along with the Meadows Trails and Native Plant Sanctuary people. Finally, with regard to Sustainable Highland Park's it's the 49th anniversary of Earth Day in the United States. It's April 28th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. down at the Environmental Center. The event grows every year. It's going to be very family friendly, a lot of entertainment, a lot of fun, and a lot of presentation. Even the Arts Collective and the Arts Commission have joined in to make posters and make artwork. The plastic bag ordinance, its first phase is almost over, which is the orientation. The second phase, which is the fee for plastic bags to start discouraging their use by the public, goes into effect in only a few weeks on May 1st. A lot of the merchants are actually advertising it with posters and doing a countdown clock. And I've also talked to a number of merchants over the last week regarding how they feel about it, how their experience is going. And they tell me that some of them who have branded franchises or branded companies, their companies have actually made available in bulk wholesale for distribution to their franchises that are already branded paper products, including bags, cups, straws, and so on. And they're actually talking about phase 2 before we're talking about phase 2. So we're looking forward to that. I wish everyone a happy Passover or Easter and Eid, whatever, and a beautiful spring day has finally come upon us, which is actually absolute pleasure to be down in the Meadows or the Native Plant Sanctuary. And if you can sneak in a little volunteer work in there, it wouldn't hurt. Thank you. And
Council President George, just to remind everyone, the Millbrook cleanup is on Mother's Day, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so hopefully we'll see people out there. Give your mother a break and clean up the Millbrook area. All right, Borough Administrator, do you have a report?
Just a few items, Mayor. Just to mention, since we were kind of flowing from the Public Works area, just a reminder to everybody, because Friday is a borough holiday, our Southside garbage pickup is tomorrow, Wednesday. So hopefully you see this in time for that to be useful information, and those of you in the audience to whom it's relevant. There's also Homet's disposal on Friday, where we have made a special arrangement down at the Public Works yard on Valentine Street at the base of South 5th. You can bring that material to Public Works between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. this Friday for that purpose only. There's instructions on the website, so please be sure to follow that carefully, but that is available if that's of use to you. Couple other points wanted to make. because I know road conditions on everybody's mind. The bids were received for our package of road improvements to North 3rd, Hilton Street, Maryland Street, and South 7th, as well as 3 of our parking lots, and we'll be rolling those improvements out as soon as we can get those contracts in place with those the company. And the pothole crews are out there starting, as quickly as we can to try to patch up those holes that are starting to disintegrate now that the weather is warming up. So we're working on it, but we know there's work to do. And then on a positive note, we are working toward an interlocal agreement with the Middlesex County to do improvements to Woodbridge Avenue from 11th to the border with Edison. So that's something we're really excited about. It's going to help with the main roadway of Woodbridge Avenue to refine that road, but also we will be picking up where our roads connect in, and we're working through the agreement now. So that's something we're very excited about. It's been many conversations in the making to get us to this point, but if you see surveyors out on Woodbridge Avenue with their vests on, that's what they're doing. They're taking the measurements to do the engineering work. Last couple of things, just things I see up on Facebook and other areas. There's questions about the drone survey that was done to count the deer population in town. That was conducted in one day, and we're awaiting the findings from the company. They hope to have it to us by the end of this week. And I've already got an internal meeting with the Division of Fish and Wildlife to review those findings in advance of our public meeting that will be scheduled, and you'll be given ample notice about that. I think that covers it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, just one question. Recycle Coach is up to date.
Yes,
the Recycle Coach. So that may be something you want to encourage people to download the app on their phones?
Sure, and that's a really good point. Recycle Coach is an app that you can download for free. You can say you're from Highland Park, put in your address. It'll alert you to any holiday schedule changes to recycling or garbage pickup or bulk pickup. So if you don't have that app, it's very basic. It also answers basic questions about what is and isn't recyclable, which I know is increasingly confusing given our situation with China and what materials they're taking and not taking. So it's a free application. It doesn't take up much space on your phone, and I highly encourage you to download it and use it. And you can adapt the notifications to your own, like if you just want to know when there's a change in the schedule versus you want to be alerted every day, you can set all those settings.
Thank you. Borough Attorney, do you have a report?
Madam Mayor, I just thought I would mention procedurally the council in a few minutes will consider reintroducing the multifamily overlay ordinance. This concerns the Buckwoods property. Since the ordinance was introduced, it's been shared with the community at a public meeting this past week. The Planning Board has reviewed it. They've made some suggested changes to the ordinance, and we've recommended that the ordinance with those changes be reintroduced, and then the public hearing would be, I believe, scheduled for May the 21st. So procedurally, I just thought I would mention that's the mechanics of changing the ordinance as introduced.
Thank you. I think I've done enough talking for one night, so I'm going to pass on the mayor's report and open up the floor for public discussion. This is our first public discussion period, which means each person is allowed to have 3 minutes of conversation, and there is a total of 15 minutes allocated for this portion of public discussion. The second public discussion period is not limited that way. Okay, so if you would please step up to the microphone, state your name and address.
John Valeri, 106 South 6th Avenue. Yes, in regards to the potholes, because I understand you, Councilman George, and you, Councilwoman Jover, talked about, the plans for the potholes being, patched up, and that's great. And I understand you, Councilwoman, said that they were pretty much going to be done as soon as possible. However, one of the streets that was not mentioned was my street, which is South 6th Avenue. And between Benner and Magnolia Street, it's like really dangerous. I mean, it's going to dust. It's come to a point where cars have had little cars that legitimately had to drive 1 mile an hour going down that part. I almost got into a few accidents because of that, especially in the snow and even in the rain, because it's just turning into mud. So is there a way that you could look at not just that street, but also see if you could have the contractors look at other streets thoroughly? Because this is like a potentially life-threatening thing too.
So as Councilman George mentioned earlier, he alluded to it, but you may not be familiar with, we had all of our roads assessed recently by a consulting team that basically drove every single road and evaluated it. We're bringing that software into Borough. We had our first training on it the other day, and it's to do exactly that, to give us a hierarchy of roads and in what order. I know I am very much aware of South 6th, where you're talking about. We've internally already flagged that as a road that needs some issues, that needs some repairs. However, we're going to see where it ranks against all the roads, as well as I want you to understand the way the contracting works. We have to put a bid package together, and that's what we have to stick to. That's how it works. I can't tack on additional work as much as I'd like to. Hey, while you're here, could you do this, do that? We have to have our engineer do the design, and we then move forward with funding it and so forth. We do all of that with outside contractors. We don't do that in-house. So what we're going to do, once we have this tool up and running, we're going to do the next wave of projects, which may or may not include yours, but I'll just tell you, we've had this conversation about South 6 in that stretch, and we know it's bad. Okay. So I appreciate your point. We're just got to balance all the roads, and I hear the same thing about, 9th, North 9th. Yeah, there's a lot of issues. So I just want to give you a sense. I can't just tack on projects that way. The way contracting works in government, you can't do it that way.
Okay, and if I were to follow up with somebody or a department, who would that be? Because if you're saying it's an outside contractor, it's definitely not going to be the Department of Public Works.
Oh, you're misunderstanding me. Public Works manages our roads.
Oh, they still do.
But we contract out the road work, like repaving work. They do potholes in-house, though.
Okay, all right. And
but I think what you're talking about is beyond pothole.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Sorry,
And
yeah.
how much time do I have left before I get cut off?
I'm also the timekeeper. You're pretty much done.
I'm pretty much done. I'll just leave it at that. So.
I gave you a couple extras because I was talking too.
Okay, all right.
And if you have more you want to say, you can come up for the second round.
For the second round, okay, I'll come up for round 2 then.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Wilders at 24 Walter Avenue. Item number 12 talks about the financial agreement ordinance for 31 River Road. So I'm speaking now because I don't know what that is, and I have a lot of questions, and I didn't want to wait until after you started speaking about it to say I don't understand what this is. Could you explain more?
Yeah, so we actually have our redevelopment attorney and team here tonight to explain the whole thing. He's going to come up and make a brief presentation on it so that we can explain everything and you'll have a better understanding of it. But that's going to be during prior to the public hearing portion of the number 12 on the agenda.
Okay, so while he's speaking, are we able to ask questions?
Yes.
Or we have to wait until it's all over?
You can ask questions.
Can I mention one thing there?
Yes.
I just want to make sure what's going to happen is he'll give a presentation, and then the public hearing on that item specifically will start. And then you can ask questions, so it's specific to that item. You don't have to wait to the end of the meeting.
Okay, and that's specific to the financial agreement.
Correct.
There's still a lot of other issues that haven't been addressed, like demolition, the schedule, safety, things like that, and I'm not quite sure when it's appropriate to start asking those questions.
He's going to cover the redevelopment agreement is also on the that's done by resolution, so they're not next to each other on the agenda. Mm-hmm. Joe is prepared to talk to both of those things, and you can ask questions
at that time.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's it for me.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Good evening. My name's Herb Gross. I live at Adelaide Gardens. Right after our last meeting, a couple of days later, we lost. We lost 2 members, 2 veterans that were at the Roosevelt Care Center, and these were local men. The first one was Ed Hardy. If people recall, Ed was the son of Hardy Tobacco Company in New Brunswick, and Ed was a great musician, played the piano, and he had national recognition. And the second veteran was Mike Cafaro. If a lot of people recall, Cafaro Bakery in New Brunswick, over on Cudwise Avenue, which is now Joyce Kilmer. Both Ed Hardy and Mike Cafaro were at Roosevelt, and they passed away right after the last meeting. And I would like everybody to join me for a moment of silence for both of these veterans. They served our country, and they served everyone here and everyone watching television. Present arms! Thank you. Before I sit down, I would like to let everyone know future dates of Veterans Affairs that are coming up, and I'll be informing everyone here. We have the Poppy Day sales coming up. We have Memorial Day parades coming up, and I'll keep everyone informed. One last issue I would like to bring out. I would like to give a lot of praise and a lot of thanks to our council over here, who is taking care of the housing development. He's doing a great job, and there's going to be some units that will be available to veterans. I can't go into that right now because it's at an early stage, but council is doing a very, very fine job, and we're watching him very closely, and like I say, he's doing a very fine job. And in closing, I met just recently with our commander from the American Legion and my commander, national commander of the Veteran of Foreign Wars, and they asked me to please tell everyone here while I'm at the mic, they want to wish everyone a very happy Easter and a very happy Passover. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gross.
Jeff Margaro, Wade Street. I do want to congratulate, although I guess they left and gone away, but I do want to congratulate the new acting chief, Abrams, and acting captain, Carvello. I have had some concerns about the hiring process, and I still have concerns about the hiring process, but I do understand they do difficult and important work, so they do deserve congratulations. I want to make sure the public has accurate information about one aspect of the hiring process. Mayor Brill-Mittler, you made statements 2 times last week, I believe once at your, although I was not present, once at your campaign launch and once on Facebook on Sunday, indicating that the Highland Park Equity Commission had recommended these 2 candidates to you, and you were approving that recommendation. Since that was discussed somewhat online, and a member of your campaign team had questioned whether or not, or actually indicated that there was still some question about this, I want to make sure it can be clarified. There was no such recommendation. Is that right?
So let me, thank you for bringing that up, Jeff. The process that we went through with the police chief and the captain, just so everyone understands, allowed for the community to give the Equity Commission some questions that were then put through the Equity Commission and then given to Councilman Hale, who's not here right now, and Councilwoman Foster Dublin, so that they could be asked at the interviews. Those questions were asked and answers were sent back to the Equity Commission for them to take a look at, and you're absolutely right. I did want to clarify something that was put on my Facebook page. It wasn't that they had recommended the 2. Out of all the questions that they did get and review, the 2 officers that got the highest rankings from them were turned out to be the two that were actually promoted. The process where they were directly involved was in the selection of a mentor, and everyone had a chance to meet her tonight. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so just to clarify, there was no recommendation of candidates from the Equity Commission?
I wouldn't use the word recommendation. They did, out of the, from the questions and answers they received, the two officers that it turned out, they thought of them as A and B. Those two officers were the two that they ranked the highest based on the answers.
Okay. Out of the three?
Out of the three, correct.
Okay. And they added the statement that the Equity Commission advises, once again, that the Public Safety Committee consider the real possibility that the candidates applying for this position are unprepared to take on the work of creating a more equitable and transparent police department. Is that right?
They did recommend that we go back to the beginning of the process and start over with the police director.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no other questions right now? Let's move on then. And now, the post-millennial is switching her glasses. Clerk, would you please report on advertising the financial agreement ordinance for 31 River Road for consideration of passage on the final reading by title?
An ordinance of the Borough of Highland Park, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with 31 River Road Urban Renewal LLC with respect to the 31 River Road redevelopment area was duly advertised for consideration of passage on final reading by title, and affidavits of publication are on file. The ordinance was posted and made available for public inspection as required by law.
All right, may I have a motion to take up the ordinance on final reading by title?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
No, you have to have the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Okay, so before we vote on this now, we will have a, this is the public hearing section that the Borough Administrator was referring to before. At this point, I'm going to ask our redevelopment attorney and his associate to come up and present to us the financial agreement with the developer.
Great. Thanks, Mayor.
Do you need a microphone? There was one
I can speak loudly, or I can use a microphone. What's the preference?
How about you back there?
It's okay.
It's good?
Okay.
Okay. So my name is Joe Bauman. I'm Special Redevelopment Counsel to the Borough of Highland Park. I've served in this capacity for a number of years now, representing first the redevelopment agency and most recently the borough as we undertake our redevelopment projects. Today I'm going to speak about and present on 31 River Road, which is the subject of tonight's agenda. There's two pieces of legislation that the governing body is considering. There's an ordinance that's going to be voted on after this hearing, and then on the consent agenda there's a resolution that approves our redevelopment agreement. In the process of advising the mayor and council through this process, I was assisted by my associate, Anisha Cooper. We also had significant help from our planner, Jim Constantine, and we had a financial consultant. And you'll understand as I walk through why that's important, from Beacon Planning, Andrew Jan, who is the principal. So that group of professionals were the outside team that assisted the VA. The mayor and council were intimately involved in every step of the way. So it was pretty much a significant collective effort by all of us to get to the point today where we can present and on behalf of the professional team recommend the adoption of the ordinance and the approval of the resolution. This process began quite a long time ago. We're probably maybe 18 months into the process. Some of you that live in the area may remember that it began with an effort by the governing body to get input from the community in terms of what can happen on 31 River Road. That process began by trying to determine what was going to be the right use for that area. And that began that way because as we started this process, we had a number of goals that we wanted to achieve at the direction of the mayor and council. We had about 6 things that we were going to achieve through this process. As I walk through the presentation, you'll understand, I hope, and agree that we achieved all of them. So, number one, the council was adamant that when we get through the end of this process, the ratables from this piece of property will be more than they are today. So we had as one of our main goals to increase the ratables for the benefit of the residents of Highland Park. And as we walk through the numbers, you'll see we more than doubled the ratables. So when this project is built, at the end of the day, the ratables often will be more than twice what they are today as they exist, as they're paying in 2019. And then they will increase over time. We also had as a goal and a critical component, one of the most critical components is we have an obligation for affordable housing in Highland Park. I think everyone is aware that we're in the process of trying to address that need. We have a hearing coming up and we're trying to avoid being in a position where we will have continued builder remedy lawsuits. This project is a critical component of satisfying that obligation. As we walk through it, we'll explain that we're going to have 6 affordable units in a 40-unit residential project. Those 6 affordable units are critical to us addressing our affordable housing needs, which together with the overlay ordinance that's being considered today, will satisfy our requirements under the current law and give us the immunity we're looking for going forward in Highland Park. Another critical component of our project was to have a project that the neighborhood and the community would be proud of, that they would embrace. And that's why, as I described, we began the process with an involvement of the community in terms of developing the zoning, the redevelopment plan that I think you're all aware of and had input that is already in place and happening. That's going to govern this project. That redevelopment plan was the result of months of input from our planner, from our professionals. It went to the planning board and back twice, and that process resulted in what we believe will be a project that we can all be proud of. We also wanted to have more wallets in Highland Park. We needed more people living in downtown that will serve, go to the businesses, buy food in the restaurants, bring money into the downtown. We wanted, as a goal, to increase the amount of foot traffic, and we think this residential project is going to do that. We thought it was important for Highland Park to turn the corner on being development friendly. The downtown has not had significant redevelopment since we originally adopted our redevelopment plan many, many years ago. So we thought through this process, we could prove to the development community that Highland Park, working together through the involvement of the neighborhood and the community in the redevelopment plan, through the engagement of qualified professionals to get to the agreements, we could show the development community that while with diligence and care and thoughtfulness and precision, working closely with the mayor and council, we can put together a project that we can all be proud of. And I think at the end of this discussion, hopefully you'll all agree that we achieved that as well. And then we've had, as a 6th goal, something that you couldn't do normally under normal development. We wanted to pick up some community benefits to the project. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we think we've achieved in terms of connecting 31 River to the adjoining, to the walkway across the street and some of the street calming improvements that we're going to have this redeveloper undertake. So those were our goals as we set out the process. That's the direction that the mayor and council gave to the professional team, and together working, we think we've achieved all of those goals. So how does that come to, so as of now, what we have now is the redevelopment plan that's already in place. That's our zoning. That was the document that I said went back and forth to the planning board several times, multiple public hearings. That was the document that's going to govern how this project gets built. And then we move to the redevelopment agreement. That's the resolutions on the consent agenda. I think it's the first item. That redevelopment agreement is a critical component of the process because it's the contract between the municipality and the developer. It's a contract that wouldn't typically occur but for the fact that we're doing a redevelopment project. So going through this redevelopment process allows us to have this contract that with the developer that's going to address a number of the issues I think you alluded to in your initial comments. So among the things that we're going to tackle, that are tackled and addressed in the redevelopment agreement. First, we define the project. It's going to be 40 residential units, 6 affordable housing units, and it's going to have a significant amount of infrastructure associated with it that are required by contract. So they couldn't do 42 units, for example. They can't do 5 affordable housing units. They have to do by contract what we put into the redevelopment agreement that is also approved by the permitted under the redevelopment plan. On the infrastructure improvements, sort of the community contribution, so to speak, that we talked about. We required them to have a road diet. I'm reading this because I'm not sure I ever heard of a road diet until now. With a 2-way cycle track at Walter Avenue to help calm traffic and safely connect borough citizens to the trail system reasonable pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure improvements, at least one electric vehicle charging station. That was an important component because the borough is in the process of developing an ordinance that's going to address that. We thought, with that expectation, we would put it into this redevelopment agreement, again, expecting the world that we're moving to, which is going to have more electric vehicles. They're required to do sidewalks, kayaks, streetscape to bring the entire frontage, and relocate all their utilities, new utilities underground. Those are all things that we included in the redevelopment. We have encouraged them, and they're supposed to make good faith efforts to develop a shuttle service for this project and to work with some of the other multifamily projects. The goal being to keep vehicles off the road, to make this project more pedestrian friendly, to address sort of the world we are living in now where autos are less desirable, and walking, biking, and ride sharing shuttles. So we couldn't require it, but they do have an obligation to make good faith efforts to pursue that shuttle. Project schedule, because our goal is not just to have an agreement, but to have it built. One of the important components of the redevelopment agreement is we put them on a schedule. And the schedule is that within 90 days of the execution and final approval of these agreements, they have to apply for their site plan, make their site plan application. And this is important because this will be yet another opportunity for the public to have a bite at the apple, so to speak, on the project. So just like any other development in Highland Park, this developer is going to have to show up at the site, at the planning board, and make their application for a preliminary final site plan application, again, at which the public will have significant input. All the typical professionals that you're used to seeing for any other project, development project, that will all occur just like any other project with the same amount of input, and hopefully further drilling down into a design and a project that we can all be proud of. Within 30 days of getting all their governmental approvals, they have to apply for the building permits, and within 90 days of receiving the building permits, they have to commence construction, and then they're on a 2-year schedule to complete the construction from beginning to end. You couldn't do this if you were in a normal development project. It only can happen because we're in a redevelopment project. Because this is an expensive process to go through, it was important for the borough to make sure that the taxpayers didn't pick up the tab. So we negotiated, and the developer has been responsible for paying all of your professional team in the same way that if they went to the planning board, they fund an escrow. They have funded an escrow for this project, and to date, they've contributed, once this agreement is signed, they will have contributed about $56,000. To offset the borough's professional fees, so that the borough won't have to have gone out of pocket for the professional team that has represented the borough and you through this process. There's ongoing maintenance obligations that they have to maintain the infrastructure that they're putting in. There's the affordable housing requirement, again, by contract that's in there. And then there's a robust series of progress meetings, progress reports, and borough access to the project as and when necessary to make sure that they're building, doing what they're doing, when they're supposed to be doing it, as required by the redevelopment plan and the redevelopment agreement. Because in redevelopment it's important that we're working with this particular developer who has significant experience, they're also limited on their ability to transfer the property. So they can't get all their approvals and flip it. They have to build the property, and we limit their ability to sell the project until it's completed. We have insurance requirements, and then we have sort of the lawyer's language about what happens if you default, or what are our remedies. All those things built into the redevelopment agreement, and that's our contract, Highland Park's contract with that redevelopment team that's going to be building the project. The second part of the legislation that we're considering, which will be the purpose of this specific hearing, is a financial agreement. So what is a financial agreement? First, let me begin by saying it only can exist in redevelopment areas, so it's redevelopment plans such as this. So it's a tool that we can use in limited circumstances in order to take projects that might not otherwise, or that are not otherwise economically feasible, and make them feasible. And how do we figure that out? So what happens is the redeveloper prepares financials, pro formas, they give us information about their expected construction costs, how they're going to fund it, debt and equity, they give us their expected rents, they give us their expected expenses, and all that information is used by the professional team to determine whether or not this project could be built without the financial agreement. And the financial agreement is an annual service charge in lieu of the normal taxes. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the developer paying an annual service charge instead of paying what would be normal taxes. What that consultant has shown us through their analysis and what we have concluded is that this project would not be built if they had to pay normal taxes. It was unlikely that it would be built because the cost of building the project is higher than the value of the project once built. So what I mean, let me say that again slowly and give you real numbers. So the expected expense to build this project is about $9.5 million. Land, soft costs, construction costs, $9.5 million. That's the anticipated cost.
Could you repeat that? How much?
$9.5 million. No numbers. Okay. In the financial agreement, the applications is to the penny. I'm not going to trouble you with that. The value of this project at completion is expected to be about $2 million less than that, if they had to pay full taxes. We do that by applying we do that by determining the revenues and applying a cap rate. All information that our financial advisor assists us in determining. So what our financial advisor concluded is that unless we did the annual service charge, this project, which is a commercial project, the developer could not afford they wouldn't knock the building down, build a new residential project, unless we had negotiated an annual service charge in lieu of what would otherwise be the taxes. So that's what we did. Now the question becomes, how do we get to the right number? What should be that annual service charge as opposed to the otherwise applicable taxes that we have concluded? Let me finish the presentation. Is that good? And we'll get to the questions. So in our instance, the statute has a formula, and the formula says that the annual service charge could be a percentage of the gross revenues. So the way that formula could never be less than 10% under the law. So the least amount of annual service charge that they can pay is 10% of the annual gross revenues. Through this process and through our analysis, we concluded that they could afford more than the minimum, and we negotiated a financial agreement that provides for them to pay an annual service charge that's in excess of 10%. And we also determined that they could afford more annual service charge over time. So we negotiated an agreement that has increases in that percentage over time. So let me give you some numbers to sort of help round it out for you. And I'm going to use round numbers for ease of analysis. So the expected annual service charge is going to be approximately $100,000 off this project, off of their anticipated revenues. That number, I'm sorry, $100,000 using 11%. So we concluded that they could afford 11% in the early years, rising to 15% of the annual gross revenues in the later years. We concluded that, and then we also took a look at, we also tacked onto it an administrative fee to help us make sure that they're paying the right amount. So in the financial agreement, the current expectation is, the current agreement is, if approved, that the redeveloper will pay 11% of their annual gross revenues, and that's all the revenues that they achieve from the project, be it from pet fees or parking fees, all their rents, that full number, multiplied by 11% for the first 10 years. For the 11% for the first 10 years. Then it increases to 12.5% for the second 10 years. And then for the final 10 years, it goes to 15% of annual gross revenues. So over time, that number, which begins at approximately $100,000, so $111,000, will rise over time to approximately $370,000, as compared to a number that's half that or less if we had done the project. So the benefit to the municipality and the school district is approximately $3 million over the 30-year term of the contract. And what I mean by that is we will receive $3 million more in ratables off of this project over the life of the agreement, we meaning the school district and the municipality, than we would otherwise have received if the project continued to be exist as it is today.
And Joe, if you could just again, just so everybody's clear, from day one, we're receiving more than we would have received if the project did not occur.
Right. So they never, by agreement and by law, they can never pay less than the taxes are today in the annual service charge. So they can never pay less. That's the absolute minimum that can ever happen. Once the project is built, they immediately begin paying that minimum, the greater of that minimum or a percentage of the 11% of the annual gross revenues. At stabilization, that becomes the $100,000 number that we're expecting versus the roughly $49,000 that's being paid today. That $100,000, 95% of it is kept by the borough, but the borough intends and plans to share that with the Board of Education, keeping the Board of Education whole. So the Board of Education continues to get the same percentage of the annual service charge that it would get if it otherwise taxes. I can tell you that that's not required by law, not required by statute, and frankly is very unique. Most municipalities take the 95% and hang on to it, and the Board of Ed doesn't get its share. That's permitted by law, and that's clearly more often the occurrence than not. This governing body has made the decision that they're going to share the annual service charge so that the Board of Education will benefit in the same way the municipality. They'll see roughly twice as much revenues in the future as they are.
And that will be in writing. That agreement will be in writing, so years later when we're not sitting here, that will still happen. I just wanted to add that on.
Right. And the annual service charge also is the same as taxes. So what I mean by that is if they don't pay, we have the same rights as if someone who doesn't pay their taxes. If there's a lien on the property, we can take the sell the lien, we can go in and foreclose on the property in the same way any other entity that doesn't pay their taxes. The borough has the same rights against this developer as they would. There's a provision in the law that the redeveloper can't make excess profits. It's a defined term in the statute, and it's designed to prevent the developer from earning too much profits as a result of the annual service charge. If that happens, that excess profits will inure to the benefit of Highland Park. The agreement has auditing requirements, so there's annual audits required. There's ownership certification, so every year we'll be monitoring this process. We're making sure that we're getting the annual gross revenues are audited and we get our share of those annual gross revenues. Because it was important to us that there's a penalty for them not getting this project moving, we also have if they fail to commence the project, meaning the demolition of the existing improvements within 1 year, the financial agreement is terminated. They're in default and we can terminate the agreement. So we put them on a pretty short leash and with, I think, a pretty significant hammer. If you don't get this building demoed and moving along within the next year, you'll lose the benefit of the financial agreement. This agreement also provides that they're going to be responsible for their own water and sewer, like everyone else, as well as they're going to have to collect and dispose of their solid waste. That's not going to be done by the municipality, nor will they be eligible to be paid for that from the municipality. So that's the financial agreement. That's the purpose of this hearing, and that's the subject of the ordinance that we're considering tonight. Again, sort of from the beginning, you can't give out financial agreements to any developer that asks. There's an analysis that goes into that ask, and the analysis is, but for the financial agreement, would they build a project? And our financial professionals have been doing this for years, does it on behalf of banks and municipalities, concluded that because the value of the project once completed would be less than the cost to build it. In other words, I spend $100,000 on my house, and when I'm done, it's only worth $80,000. No reasonable developer would do that transaction. So we had to negotiate a financial agreement that, in our opinion, was sufficient for them to successfully construct a project, but at the same time making sure that there was not a windfall to the developer in the sense that the benefit of the annual service charge wasn't so great that they received excess profits. And we think that we've protected from all those things. Again, importantly in all this is the affordable housing component, which also drives the need to make this project happen. We've talked about it in the beginning. So we went into this with 6 goals. Increase ratables. We doubled that. We doubled the existing ratables on the project for both the Borough and the Board of Education. Our second goal was to make sure that the project was one that the community and neighborhood in particular would be proud of. We did that through the effort on the redevelopment plan. We'll continue to do that at the planning board. Third goal was to address our significant affordable housing obligation to give Ed the ammunition and the Borough the tools that needs to finally wrap that litigation up, to wrap that obligation up, to provide us with the immunity we're looking for. We did this to put more wallets in the downtown, more people down there spending money on the businesses that are in the downtown. We did this to try and obtain some community benefits out of the project. We think we've done that through the infrastructure improvements, that addresses the access to the walking trails. And we did this to show the community that Highland Park is, in our opinion, development friendly. That doesn't mean that we're not going to work hard to get the best deal for the community. It doesn't mean we're not going to be diligent in our efforts. We're going to take our time as we have for 16 months or so. But at the end of the day, we will treat them fairly, and we expect the same from the development community. I think we've achieved that as well. So that is sort of the presentation as background. I'm happy to take any questions from the mayor and council. Talk about this further, but I think on behalf of the professional team, working closely with the mayor and council, we feel strongly that together we did a great job representing the taxpayers, representing the neighborhood in particular, the community, addressing our affordable housing citizens that are going to need affordable housing, be them veterans or citizens, whoever they may be, and as a result, we're happy to recommend both the ordinance and the resolution. Mayor and Governor.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions? This would be the public hearing. Yeah, so if you don't mind, let's use the same procedure with the microphone.
So the service charge versus them paying taxes, that's the developer if they're getting somewhat of a break. So then doesn't that put the burden on the taxpayers?
Well, they are going to pay. The annual service charge would be less than what taxes would be on the project as built, twice as much as taxes are today. But what our financial analysis shows us that they will not build the project, but for the annual service charge.
Right, so the taxpayers are supporting the building of this project.
No, because there would be no project without the annual service charge.
Okay,
so if I could for a second. So if there was no project, the annual taxes that the borough would be getting off that piece of property would be
$49,000.
$49,000.
That's total, includes the county.
Okay, and now we are getting
about 100,000.
100,000, so twice as much revenue coming into the municipality.
And the owner of that property was going for an appeal, right? Is that what the appeal amount?
That's based on 2019 taxes. Currently, it's just $1,600,000, I think, is the property.
Yeah,
he was going for that.
Right. So the problem is the comparison to a project paying full taxes and a project paying annual service charge is a comparison that doesn't exist in the real world, because there would be no project. We would continue to have the commercial building that's there today. We would not address our affordable housing obligation. We'd have to address that somewhere else in the town, so we'd have to put the density somewhere else. And we wouldn't be able to do any of these other sort of things that we sort of described to you. So.
And if I could add, the benefit to the affordable housing expenses over the last, from 2008 to 11 years, I asked the borough attorney and our accounting office, our finance office, to give me a total of what this municipality has been paying just only in litigation or attorney fees for the affordable housing stuff that we all inherited And that number year to date, well, year through February, is $560,141. We are hoping that with the settlement that we're reaching with Fair Share Housing, and I think the court date is June 14th,
Correct.
That will stop the bleeding from the COA litigation that started many, many years ago, that it has been really a drain on the taxpayers.
But from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like this is going to help our taxes go down, which is what everybody's been saying.
But if you, again, and you could explain it better than I can, right now, if the project doesn't happen, which it would not happen at the current rates, okay? The municipality, the taxpayers, are getting $39,000?
So it's 49 in gross.
49,000.
County.
Okay, that's a good point too. So $49,000 in revenue, which then has to get split with the county, the schools, the library, etc. Now, instead of the $49,000, we'll be getting $100,000, and we don't have to give the county as much money. Other municipalities keep all of it, except, all of the 95% remaining. Other municipalities keep it. Because we are concerned about our schools, we've decided that the same 60% of taxes that you all pay to the schools would still come out of this. So, the town is doing much better. I think it's a total of $3 million more if we didn't do this.
So but $3 million more over 30 years, that doesn't seem like that much.
Well, it's better than zero, right? So, which is where we would be if we didn't do this transaction. So, 30 million over, maybe, to your point, I'll give you the precise numbers. We'll ignore the county. The borough's going to get about $98,000. The borough and the school district will share $98,000 under this transaction. Without it, we would share $43,000. Those are the numbers, rounded to the nearest thousand.
How does that impact the general taxpayers?
So how that impacts the general taxpayers is that delta between 98 and 43, $55,000, now goes into the municipal and school district coffers to be used to pay for things that otherwise the taxpayers in the rest of the town would have to pay for. So it's $55,000 more into our budget that if we didn't have, we'd have to either have $55,000 worth of expenses,
raise taxes to cover
fine $55,000, or
and again,
or cut services.
I don't think we should.
Yeah, and that's he's got a good point. That's a tax point.
That's one tax point.
Okay. So I mean, in the world of dollars, I don't know, $3 million over 30 years, maybe it's not a lot, but it's more than zero, which is what the difference would be if we didn't do this transaction. It would continue to be the 43,000.
But I mean, I believe in supporting schools, but all we've been told all along is that this development is going to be housing millennials and empty nesters with 0 to 1 cars. So, what they would be paying would go to the schools. I mean, I don't understand that this.
The annual service charge is going to be treated exactly like your taxes. So when you pay your tax bill, a percentage goes to the county, a percentage goes to the school district, a percentage goes.
But we're not expecting more school children to be housed in this development.
Well, you never know.
Well, I mean.
Well, that's what I was saying all along. That's what the residents of Walter Avenue were saying all along.
And that's why we wanted to make sure the schools were covered.
I mean,
but that also speaks to our issue of parking. When if there's 40 units there with families, parking is even more of an issue, and that's when other people were saying, oh no, it's going to be empty nesters or millennials that ride bicycles and take public transportation. So
that's what the developer would market it to.
Right, but this isn't the conversation we've been having all along. The parking was a huge concern for the residents of Walter Avenue, and it still is. And that's not being addressed.
I disagree with you. The project itself, that was contemplated when you did your redevelopment plan, contemplated this number of units and roughly this bedroom count. So the planners, who are not here today, but who are expert in helping advise the planning board and the neighborhood on what would be the appropriate parking requirement for this project, knew what the project was going to be and what the size it was going to be. That hasn't really changed. This project is consistent with the redevelopment plan you spent so much time on. That redevelopment plan describes the parking requirements that were determined by the...
Right, but once again, the residents of Walter Avenue and the surrounding area disagreed with that because we believe that there was no way that this development was going to just house empty nesters and millennials, just not single people. There were going to be families. There is going to be an increase in traffic. There is going to be an increase in cars. And we didn't feel that that was adequately addressed. And now I feel like this is being contradicted. This was not the conversation we had been having earlier.
I'm not sure why you feel that way, but your point is you object to the redevelopment plan itself. That was already been adopted.
No, I object to their reasoning behind the small amount of parking that was provided in there.
In the redevelopment plan.
Yes.
So that's the process that went through the process twice. That's the one that went council, planning board, council.
Right, and
council,
this is what I mean
so,
by not being listened to, not being heard. Like, we show up at these meetings, we give our opinions, and then I feel like we really get ignored.
Hearing and agreeing. So it sounds to me like the planning board probably heard what you were saying, but didn't necessarily agree with what they're saying, and they used the professionals, and they made it turn. And again, they had multiple public hearings. I think the planning board is a group of.
We never got an adequate answer as to why they settled on 40 units at all. We never got an answer to that.
So I think this is going to, Terry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this goes back to the planning board, right?
Certainly, and the other thing I did mention, I believe in my email to you and some of the neighbors, in speaking with the developer, they're also very interested in having a more informal setting to present their project and some of their ideas before they even hit the planning board. And we don't have a date yet, but I'm working on that. And I think there's also the mix that I believe is proposed, and I don't have your cheat sheet in front of me, Joe, but for the market rate units, they're looking at 1 and 2 bedrooms, and that's consistent with 17 of each. The thing that has been adjusted slightly at our request, the borough's request, because of our court master, that's all the other affordable housing stuff that we've been referring to all night, and will come up when we talk about the zoning for Buck Woods as well, is we did have to adjust the bedroom distribution on 2 of the affordable units to be 3 bedrooms, but that's based on a state standard and as a best practice. So it is possible that those would attract a family, because, and 2 bedrooms can too, I'm not gonna say they don't, but the 3 bedroom units is pretty much the only change since we last were kind of talking about what might go in, and that was at our request, at the advice of the court master, who will basically be who the judge is going to lean on at this hearing, if I'm not mistaken, and we need to make sure that they believe we're complying with our obligations under the settlement agreement. So I just want to be clear, because I know that was a confusion point in some of my conversations with neighbors, but that the 6 units was always contemplated, because it's the percentage.
Right, no, I remember that.
Yeah, so I'm just talking about the 3, because I know there's a lot of research on child generation and things like that, and we just don't have confidence in that yet in Highland Park, because we've seen that happen where we thought I wasn't going to have kids and then we had kids. We think this location, and I know this was the discussion at the various meetings we had, this particular spot is super walkable to New Brunswick and the train station. In fact, it's so good that you guys are inundated by people who park there from other parts of town, because it's such a good spot to walk into New Brunswick from. So we believe this is a good place if you're going to see people with 1-car households or commuters with, with no cars.
But that was part of our concern.
I understand, but I'm trying to present, because Joe didn't have the benefit of those conversations, that the rationale behind being able to support the number of parking spots for that number of units was we strongly believe that this is a location that we can test that with, because we think that that's important. That's not to say we're not going to have to look at parking management overall in the neighborhood. That came out loud and clear on the side streets and area. That's something we are going to be studying. But I just want, because I know Joe wasn't there, he's kind of come on since we've gotten through the plan process. That's the rationale. I understand your skepticism. I'm not questioning that, but I believe there's a strong planning basis for why fewer parking spaces and fewer cars may be expected at a location like this. It's a special spot in Highland Park.
Yeah.
So that, you don't have to agree with me, but that's the counterpoint. That's all.
Okay. My other, well, once again, the traffic study, that has not been done. We were told that that was going to be done by the developer.
Well, typically when it would go to the planning board, they would bring in a professional, and we can also bring in our own professional to evaluate what they propose.
Right. I mean, I really feel that asking the developer to get their own study on traffic is once again like asking a pharmaceutical company to do their own.
No, but we would hire an independent professional of our choosing to evaluate and advise the planning board as to, is this a piece of garbage evaluation?
You can or you
We
will?
can. And I don't know what the rules are. That's not a...
The planning board.
The planning board, I mean, is it optional or is it...
I mean, the planning board will have to decide.
They will have to decide, but I would suggest that they would be very interested in that too. I mean, I don't know why they would. And that is, the cost of that would be borne upon the applicant, but we pick who we want as our professional. We don't have to take the word of theirs in the matter. And this project's of consequence, and I would imagine the planning board would want to have the best information and advice how to mitigate, because there could be traffic. When the building was in its heyday, and we had this conversation many times, there were a lot of parking and traffic there back in the day, as some of your neighbors represented. So we know it's a tight spot, and we're going to have to manage it.
My other concern is about the demolition process. You said that it was time limited. We were told that no permits have been issued as yet, but my husband met somebody in the parking lot who said that he was there to scope the building out for demolition, and it was slated for next month. So whether the permits have been issued or not, I don't know, but I would like to know if the residents are going to be informed when the demolition does start and what precautions they're going to take to try to guarantee the safety of the community there. Do we need to be concerned about asbestos? Do we need to be concerned about lead? How are they going to demolish it? Is it a wrecking ball? Is it an explosion? Do we need to keep our pets and our kids inside? Are they going to block off that part of River Road or Walter Avenue? I mean, these are all like really daily life issues that we need to hear about, and I'm very concerned about the safety, the environmental safety factors when demolition does in fact start.
Totally understand, and I've had numerous conversations with the developer about the fact that the sensitivity there, and I vividly remember one of our neighbors in the area having a child who has asthma, and that was a big concern for her because of the special condition of her child. We built certainly dust control and things into the agreement.
Yeah, I mean, actually because of that,
which
is unique, I don't see many agreements where we require them to minimize dust or anything like that.
And I wasn't finished in terms of, to your point about the timing and the precaution. I don't know, I think part of why they're surveying and doing that is those are the experts that will tell them the methods in which they need to use. And I told him it's incredibly important to get off on the right foot with the neighbors here, be a good neighbor, let them know what to expect. And he was like, I would love to have quarterly meetings, I want to have this community meeting, so I'm very confident you'll have the answers to those very specific questions as to the methods of demolition. They certainly would have to represent our code office, all the right paperwork, and I won't profess to be an expert on demo work, but I can, if I lived where you live, I would be worried too. And I'm representing that no permit has been filed yet, and as soon as there is one, I will let everybody know. And B, they've said that they will be going around and letting everybody know well in advance of any work happening to include what to expect.
Has the fire department been apprised of the demolition?
The
fire. So can we keep it in order just so it doesn't get crazy?
Okay, just one last question. The way we've been talking about the financials and whatnot, it sounds like this is going to be a rental building? Yes. It's all rental. And then does the developer, do they manage that property?
Yes.
All the time.
And that's one of the advantages I think we found when we were talking with this particular developer is they own and manage their properties. That's their business model. It's not like they're going to build it and flip it out to somebody else. This is stuff that they do regularly.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Dan Stern Cardinal, Harper Street.
I have to get home and relieve Grandma from babysitting duty, so I'm going very fast. First, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So like with the tax and revenue situation and the before versus after, the expenses to the town, regardless of what's on that site, are basically flat, is my understanding. Is that approximately right, or does any expenses to the town related to that site go up as you increase the footprints of the building, number of residents, whatever the case is?
So I think our expectation is that the fiscal impact of this project on the municipality is negligible. We're not going to have to hire another policeman or anything like that.
Correct.
Board of Education will have school children, so there will be a fiscal impact on the Board of Education, and that's why we're sharing.
That's why we wanted to share in this revenue.
Great. If you know, how many cars, like maximum, does the site plan accommodate right now?
I don't remember. There is a number.
So like 40 units, 2 cars per unit, like.
No, it's less than. It's
fewer than 2 per unit.
I believe, but I don't.
So
they were counting on 0 to 1.
Well, so let's say, okay, so let's say 60 cars per unit, so 1.5 per unit. That's so, and all the parking is going to be on site.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily per unit; it's per bedroom.
Right. Right.
Okay. So and I'm without the planner here and the actual plans, I'm hesitant for us to give answers that
we're not up on the website. So.
Gotcha. Well, so the point I'm trying to get at is to see if the parking is going to be on site, then that kind of negates any parking impact on the surrounding streets. And then if it's somewhere 40, 60, even 80 cars total, if everyone's commuting out of that neighborhood at the same kind of peak hour, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 additional car per minute. It's not going to put that much of a strain on the road infrastructure. So I just want to throw that point out there.
And remember, you compare it to what's there today, so there's already cars coming and going.
Yeah. So the last. Yeah. Sorry. So the last point I want to make is that we keep talking about the affordable components of these as, you know, it's court ordered, court mandated. We're going to get out from under these lawsuits. I really think we need to change the way we think about affordable housing just as a whole. Instead of thinking of it as a burden that's being imposed on the town by some judge up there that's making us do this terrible thing, I really think we need to consider affordable housing as an affirmative good for the town, especially since we passed the open and inclusive community resolution a couple years ago. So let me just finish real fast. Yeah. I just think, if we're gonna kind of bill ourselves as that kind of town, we need to walk the walk and not just do the bare minimum to not get sued.
So let me just address that. When I talk about getting out of the litigations, it's this was litigation that started sometime in the early 2000s. I'm not even quite sure how we wound up in that litigation, because when we a couple of years ago hired a firm, the Phil Hayden's firm, to do an analysis of our affordable housing, we basically had more than we needed of rehab units, but we were short on family units, I think, right? I keep looking at it because he's got the details. So we have always been and wanted to be a welcoming, affordable community. I don't know how we wound up in that litigation, but it's been going on since 2008. I think is the year, and as I said before, $580,000, but that's why I want to get out of the litigation portion of it. However, the municipality, because it does believe so much in affordable housing, has an ordinance that requires of any new building 15% or 20%. So any new building is going to wind up with affordable units in it, because that's what we require. Additionally, because we are so committed to affordable housing here in Highland Park, as you've heard me say many times, we have a rotating list of what we call abandoned properties. And so what we are hoping to do as a municipality is partner with some of the affordable housing corporations, so that we can find additional family units together, and where they would manage them and we would help them find them. So we are committed to that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just in case I
Dan,
forgot.
don't forget to give me that piece of paper.
Yeah.
Just in case I forgot to mention my name and address before, John Valeri, South 6th Avenue. You talked about there being a shuttle service. Well, first question I have in regards to that is how is that going to affect the public transportation that's already going in and out of town through both New Brunswick and Edison?
So what we told the road developer was that we thought it would be important to have them provide for their residents shuttle service, and we thought it would be important for them to speak to some of the other multifamily projects in town, and because they're likely they don't have enough people to support a shuttle, likely. Okay. So we're encouraging them to use the shuttle as a way to keep cars off the road. They have to make good faith efforts. We didn't require it, we couldn't. So it's really more of a, we think it's a good idea if we started putting people on shuttles to get to the train station or to the
And there was a shuttle running from the Marywall property down the road already, so the idea was if there was some way to join together on that.
All right, second question that I have is, in terms of just the shuttle service in general, and going to various different, properties and stuff, is there a possibility that you could have one going from Cedar Lane into Route 27? Because even at night, a lot of people are, taking the risk because there's a possibility a car could hit them. There's a possibility that they could get arrested by the county for trespassing on park property when it's sundown. I mean, there's a lot of factors in regards to that. I remember being a kid, going to a friend's house who used to live on treetops, and my parents would be worried sick, and they'd have to pick me up late at night whenever I'd be over there. Mm-hmm. So would there be a possibility of having a shuttle service going from Cedar Lane onto Route 27 in Highland Park?
So there's actually the Marywall development started a shuttle service which goes from River Road all the way over there, and they have offered to partner with other developers along the way. So there is the possibility we can find a way to work with them and extend that shuttle service in some way.
And how long ago was that shuttle service
started?
Yeah.
When did they open? About a year ago.
Okay, and how come that shuttle service wasn't advertised?
Well, it's a private one right now.
Oh, it's a private one.
Right now it's just for their development.
Okay.
But they're willing and able to expand that somewhat.
Okay.
But we have to make that happen.
I actually live in Treetops, and they do have a shuttle service, but it's only during a certain time. So it's in the morning. I think they have 2 pickups, and then in the evening they have 2 pickups. If you go inside, there's actually a commuter bus stop stand where I see people stand.
Yeah, because I remember being a student at Rutgers University many, many years ago. There used to be, the Rutgers buses used to go through River Road. We used to have grad students that used to live in Treetops and Forest Glen and Cedar Lane, and the Rutgers buses used to go there. But ever since they stopped going there, you have a lot of people who are either calling cabs, Ubers, Lyfts, just to go to Treetops in the town, and then just to go back late at night. So that's why it was a big concern.
Okay.
The other thing I had is you were talking about developing a bike path, and I think that's a great idea. Have you ever thought about having a bike path going from, even though this is more the county, and this may sound crazy, going from Donaldson Park to Johnson Park, because we have so much undeveloped land right behind South Adelaide Avenue. I'm not joking. Like every time I go for a run or I ride my bike and I go towards the end of South Adelaide Avenue and I look at all of this undeveloped land of overgrown grass and this, that, and everything else. It's like, and I've been doing this since I was a kid, so it's like, how come that's not even developed?
There you go, Sissy.
Thank you. John, thanks for bringing that up. We've actually we've met with the county, and we've even met with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to create such a path in certain sections. The borough owns a fair amount of land down by the river area, as well as right-of-ways to the river, which we would like to develop right now. So some of the issues are with regard to wetlands and what types of materials we can use to create a surface that the DEP would approve because it's along the river. We even have one property owner that has granted us permission, he and his wife have granted us permission to create a path along the river close to where the entrance to Donaldson Park is. So I'm really glad that you're excited about such a concept, and we are working that through our Safe Walking and Cycling Committee.
All right, I'm glad you said wetlands. It's interesting you said that, because when I used to live in Richmond, Virginia, there was one part, in order to go to this one area called Belle Isle, which is where a lot of people hang out in the summer, there was a bridge under a bridge that you crossed just to go there. So I was thinking, if not having anything suspended, have like a platform, just like they have, well, even though this platform is a part of the bridge on Route 18 that goes from College Ave to Bush Campus and back. So would that be, feasible, like something above ground?
So I'm just going to stop you for a minute, because we need to keep this session only for the project on River Road.
Okay.
But you can continue speaking to Councilwoman Wilkovitz afterwards, if you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
She's chairing a major safe walking and cycling committee that's doing phenomenal work with just those sorts of things.
Okay, and then my last question. This is actually project related. I thought that the one I had was project related, but I mean the one I asked before. But when you're talking about like affordable housing, because I remember going from place to place to place when years ago when I was younger trying to be a set designer. Are you going to be looking at other people's incomes? Well, like, I'm not joking. Like I've had landlords ask me what my income was when I was living from place to place to place.
Yeah. So you can explain how.
In order to rent an affordable housing unit, you have to meet income requirements, meaning you can't earn too much. So there are income requirements depending on whether it's low, moderate, for what type of unit it is, whether it's how many bedrooms. So there's formulas for determining whether or not you qualify for those units. Yes.
Okay. No more questions at this time.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mike. My name is Ross Baker, and I live at 35 Walter Avenue. You mentioned something in the course of your presentation that I found to be rather curious. You mentioned in the context of traffic taming, 2 bike lanes on Walter Avenue. Is that correct? Did I hear you right?
I handle this one. This is not his area. You know how we demoed? The planner likes the term a 2-way cycle track, but it's essentially the little mock-up we did, whatever. I guess it's almost a year ago because it's his birthday. Which you can still see the trace elements of that side. So the idea is that bikes could go both ways, but that's also something we can look at more closely as part of the site plan design. But the idea was, I think, coming out of that experiment, that pop-up, that it really did slow the traffic down. If we were to design it to really look more substantial and official, I think it could be great. So that coupled with other sidewalk types.
Right. If there's other traffic calming projects associated with the development, I'd be interested in hearing about them. For one thing, the speed humps on Walter Avenue are in the wrong place. The speed humps ought to be closer to the junction between Lincoln Avenue and the opening to Walter Avenue. Because what happens now is that people come around at a very high rate of speed for most of the length of Walter Avenue, briefly slow down for the speed hump, but by that time the damage is done. It was practically at the corner.
And we're finding the speed humps to be not particularly successful methods. I think shrinking the perceived, those are the techniques that because I saw it on Earth Day.
Yeah.
Just the codes and that stripe, the cars were going slower. Yeah. I mean, it was really amazing to see. But anyway, sorry, that's a favorite topic.
No, I know that. That's why it was.
But I appreciate that, and that's certainly something we can.
Wide enough for bikes to pass side by side.
I think we believe we can. But there's design work to be done here. Okay. But the developers agreed to installing the infrastructure that we need to make it happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Borough, Wayne Street. Could you just humor me and tell me what was, in terms of the figures for the project that, I know you understand it, you say it's sort of illusory because no one's going to build the project at the market property tax rates. How much would the property taxes have been if somebody was willing to do this project and pay the full freight property taxes versus what's actually being paid?
Let me walk you through some more precise numbers. It sounds like you're a numbers guy. So the expected cost by our consultant, not by their projections. So what happens through this process is they provide us with all the numbers I described to you. And then our financial consultant says, your rents maybe, I think you're underestimating your rents. I think they should be higher. I think you've overestimated your construction costs. I think they should be lower. That happened through this process, right? So we tried to test it because they want as low of annual service charge as possible. We want as high as annual service charges as they can afford. So with those numbers, our expected project cost all in, based upon our consultant, was $9,463,125. The value using a 6 cap rate, I don't know how familiar you are with that. So the way you do that is, in order to figure out what the value of a rental property is, you take the revenue stream and you apply what's called a cap rate. And cap rates are different depending on how likely the revenues are to come, and they're sort of all over the place. But there's the people that are in the business can apply and figure out what the market rate cap rate is. And that's how the banks value the project, because a bank that's going to lend them money is going to try and figure out, will I get paid? Will I get paid back? And so that number is about $7,415,313. So what full taxes demonstrate, to your question, what full taxes
yeah, I mean, I don't
full
understand
taxes.
A lot of that. I just wanted to know, like the taxes now. It sounds like over.
It would be about $258,000.
Okay.
And sort of the hypothetical that one doesn't exist and wouldn't happen. That's the number. So applying that analysis, it would cost $2 million. So no one would build that. It's unlikely. We can say never. People do things that make no business sense. It's unlikely for that project to get built, and that's what we concluded. So we tried to come up with a number that we thought was the right number.
Okay, so just to summarize, so the taxes right now are somewhere right around 50, and under this, the service charge would be about 100, and if they paid full freight, it would be about 250. Okay. And sorry, out of curiosity, the study that was done that said that they're not, that it wouldn't be worth it for them to build the project at full rate. Are there any statistics about how many times, like when somebody runs a study like that, how many times they come out that they wouldn't build it, and how many times they say that it actually could be built?
I've been doing this for a long time, and my experience is for most of the multifamily projects like this in New Jersey, there's a pilot, an annual service charge is appropriate. What you spend a lot of time is figuring out what's the right number.
So it's not basically zero, right? I mean, nobody ever does a study like this and then comes out with the answer.
We've had projects where we have not recommended annual financial rates.
Okay.
While you were speaking, sir, you mentioned that the cost was going to be 10%, and in the same paragraph, all of a sudden it went to 20%. What is the total cost now? 10% or 20%?
I think the 10%, so I'm not sure, I might have said 10, but the percentage I was talking about was 11% of their annual gross revenues is what their annual service charge would be. The 20% may...
Is that another stage?
That may have referred to the affordable housing.
You may have been talking about the staging?
The 20% number we were talking about before was the percentage of affordable housing.
I think that's right.
Then the total cost would be 20% then, right?
I'm sorry, sir. The annual service charge will be, in the first 10 years, 11% of the annual gross revenues. And then it will go up. So it's 11% of the annual gross revenues, 11. And then it goes to 12.5, and then it goes to 15.
Okay. I'm gonna switch my glasses. All right. We've completed the public hearing. So may I have a motion to adopt or reject a resolution and advertise the ordinance on final reading by title?
I thought we had a second, but I'll excuse me. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes, and I don't know if we mentioned that the applicant has to be approved through the state as well. So it's not just us, it's not just our consultants, they have to apply through the state. I'm a banker. In my background, a bank isn't going to take this on. As you know, banks have to keep this on their file. They're audited by the regulators, and that's the first thing they come in and look at as well. I know other towns that's in this area. Carteret has been doing it, Edison, Plainsboro, and when we said developer friendly, we wanted them to know basically that Highland Park is open for business and keep us in mind for your future projects.
All of which we hope will be on Raritan Avenue.
Yes. And yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Okay. Clerk, would you please report on introduction of an overlay zoning ordinance for consideration of passage on first reading by title?
An ordinance of the Borough of Highland Park in Middlesex County creating a multi-family residential overlay zone has been introduced in writing by the Economic Development and Planning Committee for consideration of passage on first reading by title.
Okay, can I have a motion to adopt or reject and advertise the ordinance on first reading by title?
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Abstain.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Okay. We're moving on to the consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, there is another one. May I have a motion to adopt or reject a resolution to approve the emergency temporary appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda items. May I have a motion to adopt item number 15 through 27?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
May I have a motion to confirm what the clerk is about to report on the election of volunteer firefighters after she reports it?
Received notification from the Highland Park Volunteer Fire Department of the election of Fernando Garcia Ramirez and Patrick Lewis.
Okay, motion to confirm.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Okay, we're going into part 2 of public discussion. It is getting very late and the council will have to vote on staying past 10 p.m. If we start getting close to that. Anybody?
What?
Public discussion number 2.
On number 2? Okay, and what's this one about now?
Whatever.
Sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit. Okay. Okay, I do this.
Hi, Marcia Goldberg, 451 South 5th. I just have a couple of questions. Well, first, just a sort of comment about Buckwoods. On March 18th and 19th, all the trees, as many of you know, were removed from the woods. And the previous Friday, the developer's lawyer, I just sort of want to remind everybody about this, the developer's lawyer had insisted that he couldn't wait 2 more weeks to take out these trees in order to do environmental testing and remediation. So I just sort of want to go on the record that 4 weeks later, Terry can confirm this, there has been no testing or remediation. So I think that's something that should just sort of go on the record that the judge may have been misinformed. Okay, so my question is, I've had a couple of discussions with the borough's attorney and the mayor about having a geotechnical engineer come to monitor the residence property that is adjacent to the site, because we need to know whether this tree destruction and the subsequent site remediation, if it should ever take place, how it's affecting residents' property. So I just want to find out if that is something that has been initiated and what's the status of that.
I can report I had a very good conversation with someone who's come recommended as a consultant who works in that area, engineering, and I had a nice conversation. My next, it was, I believe at 12 today, and then my next move is to put them in touch with Ed to make sure I represented the kind of services we're looking for, and I represented, he's willing to come out to evaluate conditions, accompanied by our code officials so you can have access to the property. And I also represented that the Goldbergs won't mind if you come on their property to take a look. So we don't have there's no contract yet. I got to see what the numbers look like, see what he recommends would be appropriate to do. But we did move forward on that, and I'm feeling very good about the conversation I had with him today, subject to Ed's kind of take on it.
Because we really need to establish a baseline.
Understood, and that's, so we're looking to get him out here, assuming that we can come to an agreement on the contract.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, one thing that is...
Could you just state your name and address?
Oh yeah, again, okay, John Valeri, South 6th Avenue. One thing that has been brought to my attention, and the swearing in of the officers reminded me of this, because now it's that, and I brought this up on social media several times, that now it's that time of year where you're going to see more both daytime robberies and daytime burglaries occur, especially since it's summertime. You're going to have these prowlers and, gut people, watching others leave their driveways and then infiltrating their houses in seconds. So will there be, since this is supposed to be a new day of policing and making sure that everyone in the community is safe and sound, will we have more officers patrolling the streets?
So you just saw tonight that we installed 2 new officers, and the new chief and captain have a recommendation they're going to be making to the borough administrator and the council about staffing for the future.
Okay, well another question I had is because earlier tonight a lot of people were talking about speed humps, and I've been seeing people race all over town, even on the roads where there aren't any speed humps. So, especially on the roads that there aren't any speed humps. So, though we are going to have, like you said, more officers and everything, will we have more speed humps or any possibility to make sure that drivers slow down for the safety of everybody?
So I actually just had a conversation this afternoon with Lieutenant Panicella, who's our traffic officer, because I understand there's some concern on South 7th Avenue also about speeding, and he's going to look into different options for different parts of town.
Okay, and does that also include Woodbridge and Raritan Avenue?
Well, Woodbridge, remember, it's, Terry mentioned before, right now we're talking about an interlocal with the county to help us with repaving there, so nothing can happen on Woodbridge, plus it's a county road. Okay. So we can't do anything on county roads.
All right, I'm guessing that also goes the same thing with Raritan Avenue since it's Route 27.
Correct.
Okay, no further questions.
May I add something to that?
Sure.
The Borough of Highland Park has been fortunate to be elected to join the New Jersey Department of Transportation's project to create better, safer walking and pedestrian infrastructure for communities. And we're working with a consultant, which they provided to us for free. And a lot of the recommendations that are coming out of that and that we expect to come out of that are traffic calming issues and the idea of sharing the road with cars and pedestrians and bicyclists. And so we're waiting for all of that information, but in the meantime, you know, we're discussing it, and this document can also be part of our master plan, which is under review right now in 2019 as well. So we hope to be making some longer term changes in traffic and infrastructure and mobility. So it's not going to happen necessarily tomorrow. We can maybe address one street or something, but we have a longer term goal.
Okay, and I'm glad you said infrastructure, because one thing that came to my mind off the top of my head, because I remember last year we had that one nasty snowstorm where there were a lot of downed power lines. So will that, you know, change in infrastructure also accommodate to that, where, you know, we're not going to have any downed power lines?
This project is really just addressing the transportation side, the mobility side of things. Okay. Not that part of it.
Okay.
That's a PSEG issue.
That's a PSEG issue. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay. Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss litigation with JSM and followed by our conference meeting?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.